So it's 2025 and finally Class of Heroes 3 is no longer trapped overseas like some sort of delinquent in detention. After nearly 15 freaking years of being suspended over in Japan, the third and final installment in this dungeon crawling cult classic series has finally been released in English thanks to P-Cube, and I am so happy to tell you all about it in today's sponsored video that it definitely is worth the wait. It is releasing on September the 18th for the PS5, the Switch, and the PC, and this remaster smooths out all the rough edges of its predecessors and definitely does deliver the most polished and playable entry in this series to date. Now, with all that being said, this is still very much a Class of Heroes dungeon crawling game. It is old school, it's punishing, and it can definitely be a grind, but it's also tighter, smarter, and way more fun to actually play than any of its predecessors. So if you do want to hear more about this, as well as tons of other great RPGs, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video in order to join my party and level on up with me. And now, with all that out of the way, let's dive on into this long-lost, forgotten classic. For those of you new to the series, Class of Heroes is a deeply old-school, high school-themed dungeon crawling RPG. You can kind of think like the Wizardry series, but with anime students instead of, grizzled mercenaries. And if you haven't played Wizardry because, Western RPG, then it could easily be compared to something like Etrian Odyssey as well, just a bit more old school than that. This trilogy was originally released over on the PSP, and back in the day, we in the West only got the first one localized. But everybody hated it, so they never localized the other two games, despite them being exponentially better. It is no exaggeration to say that each game in the series is so much better than the last. Now, there was a time back around 2015 whenever Gaijin Works was going to localize this game, but that was quietly cancelled in favor of Summon Night 5 and 6 instead. So now, thankfully, P-Cube has picked up the reins and the gaming rights and localized the first two titles, Class of Heroes 1 Anniversary Edition and Class of Heroes 2G Remaster, and they did that back in 2024, and now they're back this year to complete the trilogy with the final game. Now this remaster is no lazy port of the original game, as it updates all the systems, smooths out the pain points, and even includes new UI improvements and balance tweaks. Sadly though, there is no English voice acting here. But honestly, for a game this niche, I wasn't really expecting it. Right from the start, Class of Heroes 3 sets itself apart from all of its predecessors, as it is not just like one story told on rails. Instead, you choose one of 3 different schools to enroll in, and each of those schools will determine your starting area, the quest lines, the difficulty curve, your uniforms, the characters that you get to know, and your teachers. And this isn't just like flavor, it is a whole mechanical shift depending on where you start. The 3 schools essentially offer 3 different stories to choose from, as well as 3 different difficulty levels too. Think of it like choosing a starter Pokemon, but depending on which one you choose, you're actually spirited away off to an entirely different town to go off an entirely different adventure. The biggest improvement has gotta be just how streamlined it all is. Gone is that stupid stamina system that turned your healer into an old man after like 3 dungeons, and you no longer need like a PhD to understand how to craft items or how to build your synergistic team. And yeah, you can actually finally change your character's job whenever you want to with no penalties. So if you find out that your little mage sucks, then you can go ahead and turn him into a thief or a warrior or whatever you want to with the click of a button, and right in the middle of a dungeon too. Not only that, but this time your relationships actually matter. You can forge or break bonds between the students, which in turn activates passive boosts and powerful party skills. Get along with somebody really well? Well, that's great. Let's do a combo attack together. But if you hate somebody's guts, well, good luck healing them. Now don't get all this twisted. This isn't exactly like a Persona tier social sim depth, but it does give your party cohesion beyond, something like, this is just that big old dwarf who swings a giant axe. Every class also has specific weapon and armor affinities. Sure, if you want to, you could give a berserker a staff, but kind of like that weapon affinity system in Bravely Default, he won't be any good at it. Just like an archer won't know what to do with an axe, even though you could give him one if you want to. The knights excel with swords, thieves with daggers, and mages with rods and staves, just as you would expect. And there are dozens of different class types along with racially unique classes that all come with their own weird strange bonuses. And there's also much more enemy variety than either of the previous 2 games as well. So yeah, you'll be reclassing, grinding, swapping armor sets, and shuffling around your party members constantly. This is definitely a game made for those who love to deep dive into intricate systems. The front row, back row mechanics are back, but this time you don't have to have 3 guys in the front and 3 in the rear. You can put any number of them that you want to in whatever row you want to. But remember, if you put like a knight with a short sword in the back row, he won't be able to attack because it's short range. So your back row should be reserved for your long range attackers, like your archers or your mages. Now, let's talk about the dungeons themselves, because I want to make this very clear. At heart, this is still a very grind-heavy, old-school dungeon crawler. If you don't like random encounters, or getting your ass handed to you whenever you enter a new dungeon, or having to go on back to town to rest and resupply, then this game just might not be for you. That being said though, the dungeons themselves are easily the most intricate in the series. You move one tile at a time, carefully exploring, finding treasures and traps, switches and enemies. It is a slow burn, but it's worth it as you grow exponentially more powerful over the course of the journey. The battles though are lightning fast, and they can often be a bit overwhelming because you can face like 20 frickin' enemies in a single battle. Thankfully though, you don't fight all 20 at the same time, you only fight 1 row at a time. So clearing out like 6 goblins in the front will let the next 6 funnel on in. For the most part, it is manageable, but it also certainly keeps that challenge level up. Back at the schoolhouse, you can craft your loot into new items, and you'll definitely want to do this, because buying them like wholesale at the store is very expensive and you have little money. And the dungeons are going to give you tons of crafting materials to use. Sometimes you can experiment and find a recipe. Other times you can just kind of like buy the recipe at the store. But you definitely don't want to ignore the crafting system. It is the heart and soul of how you power up. Now, let's talk about the story, because like I said before, you begin at one of 3 different schools, and depending on which one that you choose, the whole entire story will change. However, over the course of your journey, you will reach the other academies, and then you can kind of like drop off a party and pick up a new party as you play through the game with 3 different adventuring parties, exploring, dungeon diving, and solving quests as you go. So, if the first Classy Heroes game was like a rough draft, the second Classy Heroes was its final copy, then Classy Heroes 3 Remastered is that dissertation that you have to present and defend. It is the valedictorian in this series. It keeps everything that the fans loves. The deep systems, the brutal difficulty, heavy customization, while at the same time also refining and improving every part of the formula. The new school system, the bond mechanics, the class rebalancing, the UI changes, it just adds up to a must-play for dungeon crawling fans, especially those old school dungeon crawling fans. So I've got to say, I grew up with games like this, difficult games that kept me on my toes, and if you did too, be sure to smash that like button in solidarity with me. And if you want more obscure dungeon crawlers, breaking RPG news stories, and games that make you say, just one more floor, then I'll go to sleep, I promise, then hit subscribe and welcome to my adventuring party, and come on and have a good day with me.